This morning we talked about the major changes happening in finance and the importance that regulation had to shape the future of finance. A lot of people were not aware of all the changes that had happened in finance, but it is actually started. For example, in the US, we've seen some companies like Credit Karma going from no clients a few years ago to 50 million clients today, which is 20% of the US population. At the same time, in asset management, Alibaba is now the third largest money market fund in the world, bigger than JP Morgan. And it's not just on the retail side or asset management, but it's also in capital markets where some hedge funds have started to take very, very significant market shares to banks. So all of that is changing very, very quickly in banks, asset management, insurance, for example. And so the question is, what is the role of the regulators? What is the role of smaller companies versus larger companies? And if we look at what happens in that space, innovation comes from either very small startups. Innovation can come from very large internet companies, but it can also come from other financial players like asset managers or hedge funds. So from a regulatory standpoint, there's this challenge of knowing who to regulate. And how do you regulate, for example, a two-person startup? Or how do you regulate an Alibaba, which is based in China? So a lot of very interesting questions. But at the same time, what we have seen over the last few years is that the regulator has been a driving force in helping innovation in that space, for example, in the UK or in Singapore, which means that the regulators have been able to shape the way that startups innovate, has been able to help the environment and the ecosystem innovate in a better way. So one of the main opportunities, but also one of the main challenges in this world is that technology is making things much, much faster. Where a few years ago, it cost £100 million to launch a new bank. Today, you could do the same for pretty much £10 million, for 10 times less. So in this world where everything moves much faster, how can the regulator be regulating, but how can also the regulator be in the driving seat? Because that's one of the roles that they could have. We're seeing more initiatives in that space. We're seeing some very proactive regulators, and that's definitely one of the best opportunities today to have innovation and regulation go hand in hand.